Hey guys, I am going to talk to you today about Manifest Destiny, this idea of acquiring all the land in the United States from sea to shining sea, from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific. Hopefully I can fill in all the gaps that you may have after doing your Chapter 17 homework, and then today, after we went over our societal changes during the pre-Manifest Destiny era yesterday and today. So we're going to go ahead and continue. This shouldn't be too long. So again, as I told you in class, all you have to do is take notes. If you need to fill in stuff in your graphic organizer, you can do that, but that is obviously all up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I did show you this map yesterday in class, or today, depending on what day I saw you. And we covered already in units 1, 2, 3, and up to now, we have covered, let's see, the original 13 colonies, obviously how those were acquired, the Treaty of Paris, 1793. If you don't remember, the Treaty of Paris, along with the 13 colonies, this is the land that officially becomes the United States after the American Revolution. We also did cover the Louisiana Purchase with Thomas Jefferson. Remember, he bought this land from the French, so that's all in orange. So that's everything we've covered. 1819 we did not cover. That is a treaty with Mr. James Monroe, sorry. He makes just negotiations with Spain. We acquired the land from Spain in 1819. So up to this point, we have a pretty good chunk of land. Now, everything that we're going to cover today in this PowerPoint is basically everything in the West. So the Texas annexation, the Gadsden Purchase, the Mexican Cession, and the Oregon Treaty, and then we'll finish up with Alaska and Hawaii. Okay, so just to back up a little bit, this term Manifest Destiny, where does it come from? It was a term that was coined, or a phrase that was coined in 1844 by this newspaper editor, John Sullivan. And basically, oh no, hold on. Sorry, that was my dog barking. Anyway, it was this idea that it was the God-given right given to Americans, right, to basically acquire all of the land, right, from sea to shining sea. Idea the whites are justified by God in taking the land. It is linked to this idea of American exceptionalism, right, that we are the chosen people of God to show everyone how, like the way of how things are done. The speech was given by Mr. John Winthrop, City on a Hill speech. Remember that when we were talking about Massachusetts Bay? I hope you do. If not, it is a good time to go back and review. Okay, so let's continue here. So 1844, it is the year of an election, and you have the 11th President of the United States now, Mr. James Polk. He runs along, guess who? Henry Clay. And yes, he loses again. This guy's still trying to run. But why did Henry Clay win the election? And it mostly had to do with the 4 objectives that he did pledge to achieve in his presidency, and it has a lot to do with acquiring some land here. So I'm going to tell you what these were, and then maybe you might want to tell me tomorrow or Thursday, Friday when I see you, why do you think now President Polk has been named by many historians one of America's strongest presidents? And maybe it'll be after I tell you here the 4 points. So a little bit about James Polk. He was a Democrat. Remember, Democrats at the time are a little bit different than our Democrats now. He was not a very impressive figure, middle height. He did take life a little too seriously sometimes. He was not the best at delegating authority. He was not very persistent. Okay, so the goals here that he ran on, his platform consisted of a couple things, 4 main things. 1, to lower tariffs. And of course, Southerners were like, yes, right? Because we talked about this impact of tariffs and how it impacts people, like especially in the South, right? Because when we place tariffs, taxes on imported goods, then other countries are going to do the same, and this is going to hurt Southerners who are trying to sell their things to other countries. So Southerners love this. Another goal was to reform the national banking system. 3rd and 4th points had to do with acquiring land. He wanted to acquire California and settle the Oregon dispute. So he wants to reoccupy the whole Oregon, or all of Oregon, promised by Democrats in 1844. 5440 was the latitude line of the Oregon Territory. So he runs on this 5440 slogan. But he is going to have to compromise. He doesn't get the entire land he wants, but it's still good. The annexation of Texas is going to appeal to voters So he does end up winning popular vote and electoral votes and becomes the 11th president. So in 1845, Texas is going to join the Union. Now, Texas has a very unique story. Texas, before it was even Mexican, it actually belonged to the Spanish because the Spanish had colonized, remember, Mexico. So Texas first belonged to Spain. Then it became Mexican. It was part of Mexico after the Mexican-Spanish, or the Mexican and Spanish, after Mexicans fight the Spain for independence. Then Texans are going to want to do their own thing, so then they're just going to become the Lone Star State, Texas. Then finally, they will become American. They want America to annex them. There is a quote here, Texas will poison us. This was said by transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson. So why? What is happening? So one of the reasons why Texas becomes its own territory, everything has to do with slavery, and Texas will poison us is all about slavery too. Okay, so first of all, why do Americans go to Texas in the first place when Texas is part of Mexico, or I should say Texas? Well, because land is so cheap, and even the Mexican government was inviting them in and said, yeah, sure, come on in. But then slavery was going to become outlawed in Mexico. So slavery was against Mexican law. But a lot of Americans who came to Texas brought their slaves with them, and they were not happy about this. For the most part, the Mexican government did leave Texans alone, the new American Texans. And a lot of the Mexicans, Tejanos that did live in Texas, they didn't like the laws made by the president there, Santana. So the Tejanos and the new American Texans are going to come together, and they are going to basically fight for independence and basically become their own Lone Star State. They do become their own Lone Star State, and then they keep asking the U.S. to annex them, and finally the American government does let them in, so that's how they become part of the U.S. Union, or union government, or not government, country, sorry. And they do come with slaves, which is going to throw off the slave count of states and Congress. And anyway, we'll get into sectionalism next unit, but it is basically something you should know, and this is why this whole Texas will poison us thing is here. Okay, let's talk about the Oregon Treaty, 1846. So this is the Oregon Trail, by the way. Already told you about the 5440. He's gonna have to settle for 49.40. It's okay though. So why do we want Oregon? Okay, Oregon. A lot of people looking to start over in the West come to Oregon, and this is known as the Oregon Trail, 2,000-mile trail beginning at Independence or St. Joseph, Missouri, or Council Bluffs, Iowa. People walk barefoot, and they do this all the way till Oregon. It was a very treacherous sort of route and journey. It wasn't the easiest, and it was people who were starting all over, pretty much. There is a very fun game I used to play in elementary school, the Oregon Trail. I'm going to link it for you guys if you guys want to play and tell me how it went for you. I think you do need Flash Player, just like you did for the other game we played with Jamestown. But anyway, it's really fun. You guys should play it if you do get a chance. So anyway, the death rate here, 10%. A lot of people died along the way from cholera, poor sanitation, accidental gunshots. A lot of them were also raided, like their wagons entirely raided by Native Americans. So it wasn't just the easiest of journeys here. You have some Oregon Trail fun facts here. I'm not going to read them, but just read them for fun if you want to. Oh, it's not here. Anyway, later. All right, so now we said we were going to talk about the Mormons again, and here they are again. You will learn a little bit more about them on Friday. Some of your classmates did the PSA video for Mormons, but just a little bit about them. They are going to play a major role in the development of the West, and basically they are being affected by great religious excitement in the time, right? So Joseph Smith, he establishes the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, 1830. So according to this religion, an angel gives Smith golden plates when he translated, and it becomes the Book of the Mormon. It is a sect of the Protestant Church. So basically, at the age of 14, he basically just wants to find out what the religion is all about. So he goes and secludes himself in the woods and will ask God, like, which religion should I join? And supposedly God responds to say not to join any. But then 3 years later, he is visited by an angel named Moroni, who told him of an ancient account containing God's dealings with former inhabitants of the American continent. And in 1827, he retrieves the record inscribed on these thin golden plates and becomes the Book of Mormon. Smith is going to run into some serious opposition from his non-Mormon neighbors in Ohio, though, and in Missouri and Illinois. In 1844, Joseph and his brother were murdered in Illinois, and Brigham Young becomes the Moses of the Mormons. He is going to lead his oppressors and despoiled of the Latter-day Saints, over the vast rolling plains all the way to Utah. And they're going to stop at the edge of the desert here near Great Salt Lake. They learned to be very successful here. They are going to learn how to irrigate the land and become prosperous under Young. They do make up a cooperative commonwealth, right? So they are very good at doing what's best for the community, and this is pretty good. But they are criticized for a lot of stuff that they practice. One of the big things here is the practice of polygamy, because they are allowed to marry more than one wife. They also maintain a militia. Why? Because they've been, harassed for a long time, and they're like, we need to protect ourselves. But again, they were pretty prosperous financially here. Side note, Brigham Young, you guys, married 27 women and had 56 children. I already said that. Okay, so 70,000 Mormons are going to migrate thereafter. And like I said in class, the Mormons are the only group that kind of utopian society that still exists today. All the other ones we talked about, the Oneidas and the Shakers, they're mostly gone. Okay, so the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, you see this here. This is territory we get from the Mexican-American War. It is going to be signed on February 2nd, 1848. So causes of the war. A lot of it had to do with Texas, right? So Polk is going to dispatch this guy, John Slidell, to persuade the Mexican government to sell them California and New Mexico territories and to settle the dispute of the Mexico-Texas border. There was a border issue here with Texas, and they said, where does it end? Where does it start? And there were issues here. Government is going to refuse, and the Mexican government is going to refuse to sell and to dispute it or to settle this. So both sides start to run for each other. The Mexican army is going to cross the Rio Grande and capture American army there. So Polk is going to use this incident to send prepared war message to Congress, and basically they start the war. After the war, they do agree that the Rio Grande is now going to be the border between Texas and Mexico, and they are going to cede the new territory of New Mexico and California territories to the United States. The United States is going to pay $15 million for this cession, which included the following: California, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, most of Arizona, parts of Colorado, and Wyoming. The little dark spot beneath Arizona, that's going to come after. That's the Gadsden Purchase. At first we didn't want it, but then we realized we actually need it. All right. You guys, we're going to come back to sectionalism. So I'm going to skip this question. Sorry, I should have taken it out of the PowerPoint. All right, so Gadsden Purchase, 1853. Okay, so what ends up happening here? Initially we realized we don't want this territory, but then we're like, oh no, we need it. You know why? Because at the time we're building the Transcontinental Railroad, and we realized we need this soil here because of one originally above it. It's too rocky, so we need the land of the Gadsden area to actually put train tracks on it. So an ambassador is going to go to Mexico to purchase this region. It wasn't built though till after the Civil War, because you're going to see we're approaching Civil War, which is coming up, and we don't have time. So then obviously we're going to do this after the Civil War. So it is going to be finished until Grant comes into office in 1869. But this little piece cost us more than most, or not, I guess if you take a look at it square foot wise, it was pretty expensive. And lastly here, down the road, we are going to buy Alaska and then Hawaii. Alaska was acquired by a treaty from the Russian Empire in 1867, by a treaty ratified by the U.S. Senate and signed by President Andrew Johnson. $7.2 million here. It was known as Seward's Folly or Seward's Icebox. Seward was a guy who did the treaty. What else here? Alaska. Anything else I should tell you? No. It is going to become, yeah, sorry. It's called Seward's Folly, Seward's Icebox, because they're like, why would we buy this? It's just a bunch of ice, right? But actually later on they are going to find precious stuff like gold. And also it's rich in other natural resources. So then people are going to be happy about Alaska. And Hawaii, we annex Hawaii. Queen Liliuokalani is pretty much forced to abdicate the throne here. And we are going to annex Hawaii in 1898. But it does not become a state until 1959. And this is interesting to point out because not a lot of people realize that when World War II hits, or we enter World War II, technically Hawaii is not part of the U.S., but we do have obviously Navy bases there at the time. So yeah, we will get, well actually I'll tell you now why. So why did the U.S. want Hawaii? Well, yes, actually we are going to talk about it later, never mind, with imperialism. So I'll tell you later why. All right, folks, that's it for now. Imperialism, we're going to talk more about this acquiring of land, but then we're going to try to expand overseas. So if you have any questions, jot them down, email me, message me, or I will try to answer them on Thursday, Friday. All right, have a good one.